Hello. Let us finish the backs of our hoops. I forgot to grab me fabric. Just need some fabric. You don't have to back your hoop with a piece of fabric. You could just tie it closed and be done. There is so many ways to back your project. So if you don't like the way I do it, feel free to pick a different way. I like to keep it pretty simple. I don't want to have to get out a hot glue gun. I don't want to have to get out an iron. I just like it really simple. So, yeah, let's do that. So first of all, removing your pen lines. If you're using a heat erasable option, I feel like my face is so dry. If you're using a heat erasable option, if you're using like the Pilot Friction markers or pens, I like to use a blow dryer. I just turn it on high and just run it over the piece a couple of times. If there's any spots that kind of come back, you can just run it over that again. I usually kind of just like look over it and make sure I got everything. Once it's backed, you can still like run a blow dryer over it. Or you can use an iron. I would just use like slightly cooler than like the cotton temperature. But yeah, just erase those lines with heat. If you're doing water soluble, like pen or marker or whatever, when I was using that option, I would soak mine and then just lay it flat to dry. So let it dry completely before you back it, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, so let's back our projects. Are we ready? I need a few things. Okay. All right. So I've already erased I've already erased my lines, so you can see they're gone now. So we just have our cute finished project. This is not quite as round as I wanted it to be. So sometimes after I erase my lines, I'll go in and do some extra things. Like if I feel like this needed like an outline or something to kind of make it a little bit rounder, I can do that. Or like there's like some gaps right there. Sometimes it's hard to see when the lines are still there. But look, that erased really nicely where the XO was. Anyway, so if there's anything you want to fix it now, because once it's backed, you're not going to want to take it out and fix it. So fix what you want to fix and then back it. So my hoops are pretty tight. So I usually have to get out my screwdriver or pliers or whatever and loosen this. You don't want to loosen it too much, just like enough to get the inner hoop out. So we're just going to pop that out. So we're gonna do inner hoop. Now, if you're using a bamboo, remember where your top is. Inner hoop, backing fabric, and then this can go right on top. Now, if you're not using a backing fabric, which you don't have to, then don't take it out, just leave it in. You can just leave it in there. So put this back on, and then we're gonna do the same thing like we did when we were putting this in the hoop to begin with, is we're just gonna get it tight, except now we have 2 layers. So I always feel like my back is usually pretty tight, but if it's not, I usually tighten that first. I just pull it separately and pull out any wrinkles back there and then come to the front, which is usually like bubbly and loose. But I just start at the top and work my way around and just pull that nice and snug. You can pull the backing fabric and the front fabric at the same time, but I always feel like it's easier to do one at a time. I don't know why. Now, I didn't loosen mine very much, so when I put my outer hoop back on, it's pretty snug already because it has 2 pieces of fabric. But make sure if you need to that you're tightening your outer hoop before you start trying to pull this snug. Mine's already pretty tight, so I'm not super worried about it. And then I'll just tighten it again once it's pulled tight. Whoops. Okay. Make sure it's as tight as you want it to be, that there's not any wrinkles. And then we're gonna back it. So what I do is take the backing fabric and cut it down to the hoop. I just pull it out of the way and kind of don't go too fast. You don't want to cut your front fabric. I've done it a million times, so I kind of have a feel for it now, but anyway, so it should look about like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut around the white and just get it nice and rounded. I don't like to do this before I start working on a piece because there, you know, it will start to like unravel a little. So I always cut after my project is done, about 1 inch all the way around. Also, make sure that the surface you're working on is clean, because if you put this hoop down and then it gets dirty, like you just finished it and then it gets filthy, you're gonna be really sad. So make sure your workspace is clean before you start working on it. Okay, so about 1 inch all the way around. I'm not super worried like right here is like longer. Like I don't try to make this like super clean cut or anything. I do try to keep this a little bit nicer, but not the end of the world. Also, there's a little bit of a wrinkle. Also not worried, just not worried about it. Okay, so then we're gonna take one of our threads that we have a lot left, or sometimes I have some like off-brand threads that I don't like to stitch with that I'll sometimes use to back, but we're just gonna take all 6 strands and just kind of loosely measure it so that it will go like all the way around. Usually if I pull like 2 times, pull out once, that's usually enough for a 7-inch hoop. Okay, and then we're gonna get our needle and we're gonna do a running stitch. So I like to leave a little bit of a tail because it helps me pull this tight once we get our running stitch in there. So I like to have my knot up a little bit, so it's right here instead of down here. Okay, and then I always start at the top, so wherever my hardware is, that's where I'm gonna start. And I go up and down to start it, and my spaces are about a half a needle apart. I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect, just grab a chunk of fabric. And then I usually go up and down the rest of the way in one motion. So I just grab a chunk of fabric, 1, 2, and then pull it through. Whoop. Up and down. Oh my goodness. So another tip for you, if you're gonna back with fabric like this, if you're using a patterned fabric to back your projects with, sometimes that pattern will, if you have a single layer, like I only stitch on a single layer, some people stitch on a double layer, so they don't have this issue, but if you're stitching on a single layer, sometimes that pattern will show through on the front, or like the color will sometimes. Like this, it's like slightly pink, you can kind of see that pink behind it. which doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, you can put a second layer, either stitch on 2 pieces of fabric, or you can get like if you get like a light gray piece of fabric between them, then you won't be able to see that pink or the pattern or whatever. Just like put a second backing piece behind it. Now, I don't want to pull this too tight because I want to be able to pull this a little bit more. So don't be pulling this like too tight. I just wanted a little bit of extra thread so that I could get all the way around this. Okay, and then I try to end them fairly close together. Whoops. Once you get to the end, you can take your needle out. We don't need that anymore, but they're pretty close. And then I pull them both tight. Just pull them straight down. Don't pull too hard. These will break. I've broken them before. I always use 6 strands. They're less likely to break if you use less than 6 strands. I almost always break my thread when I'm pulling this because I'm pulling it pretty tight. So I usually just pull those tight together and then tie a double knot. Sometimes I have to get one of my kids in here to hold the knot, but I've gotten pretty good at it. If I hold it with my thumb and forefinger, I can usually do another knot. Whoop. Pull that tight. And then just trim that a little. And that's it. So then you have that cute little back, a little pop of color or whatever. And your finished hoop. Look how cute. Oh, I thought that was a thread. Sometimes I'll go over this with like a lint roller. Ooh. Like if it got, I don't know, pet hair or dust or something on it, but you're done. That's it. You're all finished. So I like to display these either hanging them on something right here, or I have, let me see if I have one right here. What do I do? These are from Modern Hoopla. And you can just set them in there like this. They don't fit very good. They're supposed to actually be used like this. Your hardware is supposed to go in there, and then it just sits up. Other way. There we go. Anyways. But they're little like hoop stands, hoop props. Anyways. But I usually use them like this, and they sit just fine in there, and then lean them up against a wall or on a shelf or something. Or just lean them up against a shelf, or get an easel, or whatever. Anyways, that's it. So fun. Okay, let me know if you have questions about finishing these, and I would love to see your finished product, especially if you did something different than me. Because I think it's fun to see everyone's different take on things. I never took this out. I just left it. So it's like half and half. But anyways, I kind of think that the strawberries might have been my favorite. Maybe the love heart. One of those two I think are my favorite. Yay. Okay. Let me know if you have questions, and I want to see your finished pieces. And thanks for joining, and see you next time. Bye.